Welcome back to the Noble Ones podcast. I'm really excited for the topic today, and I'm so glad that you're joining me again. And if you're here for the first time, welcome to the Noble Ones podcast, where we have raw talk about feelings and emotions, and we share stories about our journeys and how we've transformed through all kinds of experiences that happen to us along the way. So today we're going to be talking about a couple things. What in the hell is a dark night of the soul, and how is that part of a spiritual awakening? And the reason I keep coming back to this topic is because it was really relevant to me on my journey, and also to what I'm trying to do with my mission for Noble One, which really is to help people feel their feelings and to understand why that is so important on our paths in our life, when we've been taught and programmed that, you know, it's not okay to show much emotion, or we don't want to talk about our feelings because it's a sign of weakness, or all the reasons that we kind of bury and stuff. But as you go through, an expansion in your life through the awakening and the dark night of the soul, which could happen to you, which we'll talk about, you really start to learn that most of what you're creating in your life is coming from the inside. So your emotions and your feelings are really a blessing. So let's get into it. A dark night of the soul, and I wrote out a definition that I guess for me, so this is again my personal opinion. You can Google dark night of the soul and spiritual awakening and find all kinds of information. But I really kind of wanted to walk you through my experience, which was really harsh and drastic. And it could happen like that, and it might not for you. So let's see. So my definition that I wrote was, a dark night of the soul is a major transformative event in your life that sends you into the shadow aspects of yourself to awaken the truest and highest version of you, while your current reality, or the life that you thought you knew or wanted, collapses around you. And this can often be described as like an ego death. And honestly, like for me, it felt like that. I felt like the life that I knew before died, like in a really short period of time. It can be confusing. It can be disruptive. It can be painful to have this kind of an experience. It almost feels like, a depression. You really are in this state of mind where nothing makes sense anymore. And I believe the reason this happens is because it is transforming you through a spiritual awakening process. So a lot of times what they call the dark night of the soul, or this dark period in your life that feels really heavy and almost like, how am I going to get out of this, is meant to awaken you to more awareness of who you truly are. So in my experience, they went hand in hand. And oftentimes it is triggered by something major, a major occurrence, a major life event. It could be going through a divorce. It could be, where heartbreak is really hard. It could be death of someone, either, close to you, a family member, unexpected, a friend. It could be a job loss. It could be a physical illness or diagnosis. It could be a pandemic. I think a lot of awakenings happened in 2020 when the pandemic started, and we kind of continue to go forward in this crazy world. A lot of people kind of are going through an awakening now, which is why I thought this topic was really relevant. Or it could just be like a catastrophe, tornadoes or hurricanes or something that you and your family go through. So I don't know why this is. It just is. And I think the reason, well, actually, I do think I know, in my opinion, again, why it is, because it brings you to a complete stop, a complete standstill, so that you actually have to look at your life and say, what am I doing? Like, what do I really want to be doing? Why am I doing the things that I'm currently doing? And why am I not doing the things that maybe are more resonant with who I am? So I mentioned this in the very first podcast when I told a little bit about my story. So if you haven't heard that, you can go back and take a listen. It was kind of like in a nutshell. But I mentioned in there that this is what I felt like. So my brother passed away. I was going through a divorce and I lost a job. And so 3 major, like difficult things happened to me in a 3-month time span. So it was like the rug was pulled out from under me. And I just went into this really dark depression, which I thought, well, I'm already dealing with depression. That was kind of one of the labels I was given. So I thought that was not abnormal, I guess, to feel that way. But what was really weird about it was like nothing felt the same. All of a sudden, it was like nothing was resonating with me anymore. My friendships I wasn't connecting to my friendships. I wanted to just really isolate. My job didn't feel in alignment anymore. I didn't want to do any of the things that I used to love. It's almost like your entire perception of everything that you knew up until that point has crumbled. So now you're at the bottom and you're trying to reset your foundation, but you don't really know even where to begin. Some other things that I noticed were, so it's this feeling of like kind of loss, despair, like loneliness, and it really, really is hard. So you've got that going on. And then you also have you could have these physical symptoms. So besides like the depression and the anxiety, it was like my body started to like purge and I was having skin rashes and insomnia. I couldn't sleep. I was waking up at 1 to 3 o'clock in the morning is really common, to wake up in the middle of the night for no reason or not be able to sleep. Like your sleep schedule gets thrown off. My diet changed. There were certain foods that I just was like, oh, I can't eat that anymore. And I would try and it wouldn't taste the same, or my body would respond weird to it. What else? I was getting high-pitched noises in my ears, buzzing, and my body felt like it was vibrating. And these are all just signs of so your body's energetic, right? And it's transforming and you have a lot of energy flowing through your body. So your body's trying to move out toxins, and also you have emotional blocks. So one of the primary symptoms for me was I had all this energy trying to move through me, and my heart, I had so much grief at that time. So my heart was literally shut down. I didn't know how to handle that much pain at once. So there was a period of time where I felt like I was having a heart attack, and I'm a healthy person, I exercise and I eat right. So it was a really weird symptom and really kind of scary to have that. So 2 different times, I actually ended up going to the emergency room and having my heart checked, thinking that I was having the signs of a heart attack. And what I learned going forward was that was all just blocked energy kind of in my heart chakra. And so I had to do a lot of emotional work to finally clear all that out. So you're going to have mental and emotional symptoms. You're going to have physical symptoms. And then now let's talk a little bit about the spiritual aspect. So suddenly I grew up in a Christian household. So a lot of the beliefs that I had around religion turned more to a spiritual focus. And I started going down these rabbit holes, mainly because of the term spiritual awakening, right? Well, I don't know. I think a spiritual awakening is, in my opinion, it's just a awakening to more consciousness, more awareness around who you really are and what's true for you in your life. So it's almost like, the movie The Matrix, you finally, you break out of it, or you're able to actually observe it and see how you've been going along in life, just kind of programmed, doing what everybody else is doing or doing what you were told to do. So there's this wider lens, I guess, that you look at in it, and that's the spiritual aspect of it. And you realize oh, I'm more of a soul having a human experience than a human having a soulful experience. And you just start to operate more from your intuition, kind of this inner knowing and what resonates with you. And you're able to discern things a lot easier. So there's definitely this metaphysical aspect to it where you realize you're you're more than what you thought you were, that you're connected to the whole. And that just kind of happens, and you start to go down these rabbit holes. And, again, I'm such a lover of learning. I'm still diving down rabbit holes to this day, but it was like, one thing I can say is I took in so much information so fast, and because I was looking so much to get out of that dark place. This is just something I would say to you, like, to just trust that there's a process going on and it takes a while. And I was, in this state of confusion of trying to figure out who I really was and what to identify with, because nothing felt normal. So I almost was like, oh, I'm going through a spiritual awakening. So I took all of my coping mechanisms and just moved them over to spirituality. And that was not necessarily a healthy thing to do, because I bypassed a lot of the inner work. So that's why this topic is really relevant, and I wanted to address it, because when you go through something like this, well, let me back up first. So that was my experience. Mine was really harsh, and I feel like when I look back, that's what I needed, because the way I've operated my whole life is I'm a very highly functional, like doing. I have a lot of energy, and I'm high achiever and really hard on myself to meet all these goals. So the only way God or the universe or whatever you kind of look at as this higher aspect that you call upon had to pull the rug out from under me. I mean, it had to happen that way. Now I observe, I meet people, I see people going through their own awakenings, and it's not so drastic. It's a little bit more subtle. And so it doesn't have to be, so harsh for you. But I just wanted to talk about some of the changes that you might feel, and it's like, it's really important to say that it could be, there's a range, right? So it may be more subtle for you, which I think is happening kind of in the younger generation, where if you're more mature in the number of years you've been on the planet, you're more programmed. You had a lot more limiting beliefs. You're kind of stuck in a lot more patterns. So it may be a little bit more abrupt for you. So what I was going to say is about our emotions. So there's this process where you're called to do the inner work. And a lot of people will call it like spiritual bypassing. And I think it's real. And it actually happened to me. So I got on this, mission of like, oh, I'm going through this spiritual awakening, and I start diving down these rabbit holes, and I find all these new tools to use. But I was still avoiding the pain of the inner work that I had to do. So I did some really kind of drastic things, like, I quit my job and I shoved all my stuff into a storage unit. I went traveling, and that's all good. And there was a reason for that, but I was making so many life decisions so quickly, but I wasn't really stable enough emotionally yet to probably be doing that. So that's why I want to give you a few tips if you feel like you're in a dark night of the soul, or if you think you may be going through your own awakening process. So the first one I wrote was trust the transformation. And it is a transformation, and it's ongoing. So your soul is evolving through all these different experiences, and it's a process. And the transformation is, it happens really quickly sometimes, like the abruptness. It's almost like your consciousness, your mind gets blown open, but your body has to catch up. So there's this period of time where you have to integrate all that you're learning, all that you're feeling, all this new information, all of this, like everything you're kind of seeing that is, wow, like, I can't believe I believed that was true, or that was true, or that was true. And now you have this whole different lens you're looking through. It's so overwhelming, like emotionally and mentally to the mind, but your body is also part of it. So it's like we're physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and you kind of have to balance all those things instead of running in one direction towards something like I did. And I have that tendency to be up in the mind, and I like spirituality and metaphysical information. So I was just doing everything up there, but I was forgetting about the physical part and the grounding. And then the work is merging them through the emotional journey. So trust that there is a huge transformation going on, and just be patient with the process, which is the second thing I wrote down. And the process is different for all of us. You will realize that, if it's something drastic that happened to you, you have to heal from that event. And then you'll always be kind of brought back to maybe things in your life that maybe you didn't deal with. So wherever you're at now, let's say, you've healed a while, you've gotten through a situation that happened to you, but you keep getting triggered and you notice these triggers all keep bringing up the same emotions. Well, there's a process going on, and it's this process of releasing subconscious emotions and things that you buried, things that you've been running from. So it's actually a really personal journey. You're not going to do it like anybody else. So don't compare yourself to anybody else, because as you start to connect to people, you'll see and hear people talking about their own awakening. And now you feel like they're light years ahead of where you are, and you want to get there and you want to understand and you want to know all this information, but trust the process because it's personal for you. The third thing I wrote was find a couple teachers and guides that resonate with you. For me, I was, again, just kind of laying in bed for 3 months, and I was guided. I got back on Instagram, and I had an account on there from a past business. And because I had isolated myself, I got on there and I happened to find a couple people that were talking about, spirituality, and I still actually follow them to this day. So you'll probably be guided to certain teachers that resonate with you, but there's a lot of them out there. So be very discerning. If things don't make sense to you or doesn't feel right or it just doesn't vibe with you, don't follow them, because there's plenty of people out there that are kind of teaching this information and are there to guide you on your path. But find a couple that stick with you and that resonate, and just tune into them, because it'll be really helpful to learn from their experiences. The fourth thing I wrote, which is kind of funny, is be true to your own woo-woo. So there's all of this information about meditation and crystals and sage and incantations, affirmations. There's so many different avenues you can go down, like Buddhism, yoga, retreats, psychedelics. There's so much information kind of that's rooted in spirituality and metaphysics that you're kind of wanting to do it all, and you're kind of wanting to think okay, I'll have to sit on this pillow and hold my crystals and do my affirmations. Well, you can do that if it resonates with you, but you want to make sure, again, it's true to you. So I happen to love crystals, and I don't know what it is. I go into a crystal shop, but it's they work for me. They resonate with me. Other people are I don't get it. They're rocks. So I think that you have certain things that your soul will draw you to, but realize again, it's your own journey. So you don't have to do all the woo-woo stuff. It's kind of what works for you. So the way that you decide to meditate or the way that you decide to do affirmations, just be careful of all the woo-woo out there and pick the woo-woo that's true for you. So, and then the last thing, which actually should have been the first thing, is I learned this later, and I wish I would have dove into it first, is establish some kind of a meditation practice. And there's all kinds out there. You can listen to them, so they're guided. You can do walking meditations where it's more of a moving meditation. You can do a mantra. So explore different ways to get into a meditative state and find some sort of a practice. And again, I say this all the time. I post about this. It doesn't mean you have to sit on a pillow with your legs crossed and hold your hands and chant. That might work for you. But that's not the only way to do it. And really, meditation is just getting out of your thoughts, the busy thoughts, and actually watching them go through, realizing what is it that you're thinking about, just watching those thoughts go by. And then eventually you get to this point where you're able to sort of silence your mind and be peaceful. And it does so many amazing things. It like slows down the nervous system from this whole process that you're going through. It allows you to kind of tap in and discern like, okay, that's my inner voice. That feels right. That's resonating with me. It sets you up for your day or helps you end your day in a quiet space. It just literally slows everything down. And even if you're not going through a spiritual awakening, I would say a meditative practice is something that anybody can benefit from. So those are the top 5. I'll go over them again. Trust the transformation. Be patient with the process. Find a couple of teachers that resonate with you. Be true to your own woo-woo. Find the little spiritual things that work for you, and then establish a meditation practice. So those are the tips that I would recommend. And again, this is something that we're all going through. You know, everyone here on the planet right now is evolving in some way. And I realized also, well, I'll tell you some funny stories. So I was going through my own spiritual awakening, and as I was learning things about like, well, we're raising our consciousness from a 3rd dimensional frequency to a 5th dimensional frequency. So I was hearing like, we're moving into 5D, and I was so panicked. I'm like, well, what does that mean? We're going to 5D. Are my kids going with me? Like, is my family going to go? Like, I was taking all these things that I was learning, like literally, and I just didn't have enough information about them. So again, just like you have to trust the process. We're all going through it. We're all expanding in ways. And then the other thing is some people won't go through it. Like they are in a sense, but they're not going to commit to do the work that it takes because maybe you have too much trauma. Maybe it's too painful. Maybe you just didn't sign up to go through that from a soul perspective in this lifetime. And that's okay too. And when I learned that I was going through a spiritual awakening, it was so funny because I was telling everyone that, oh my gosh, I'm going through my spiritual awakening. And I was trying to share all this information that I was learning. And what I noticed was most people were looking at me like I was speaking Chinese. So it's like a resonance. Not everyone goes through it at the same time. So not everyone can hear you, if that makes sense. And then I started to connect with people that were also going through it. So, you know, you'll notice that friends fall away, you know, even relationships. Like when I look back, at the divorce that I was going through, and actually now, like all of my relationships are meant to grow with you for a period of time. And then it might be at the point where one of you is still growing and the other one chooses to stay where they're at or they're comfortable in certain ways. And that's okay. And I kept thinking like, you know, I was blaming like the relationships or the other person on all these things. But what I realized was I was transforming. And so all I needed to do was accept that I can't change anybody. We're all right where we're at. So you'll notice like not everybody's going to go through this. Not everybody's going to do it the same way. Not everyone's going to do it in the same timing, but we're all kind of walking through this process together. And so you'll find teachers and guides that resonate with you. Then you'll kind of understand where you're at, and then you'll help other people. And it's kind of like we're all walking home together. And it really is this beautiful journey. So I feel like I've said, you know, what I really wanted to get across. And hopefully now you better understand what a dark night of the soul is, this kind of transformative feeling and period of life that could feel kind of dark and shadowy, but it truly is meant to walk you through an awakening process, which is beautiful on the other side. A lot of times I hear the metaphor that it's like a caterpillar and you go into the cocoon and you're in this period where you're just transforming, and then you come out as the butterfly, but your wings, your strength is kind of still developing along the way. So, just be patient, love yourself, be compassionate. If you have any other questions, you certainly can reach out to me, leave them in the comments. I would love to hear from you. And just know that you're loved, you're being guided, and you're just being asked to kind of connect to yourself and find that higher aspect of you. And it will relate to your emotions, because that's where the work is. That's where, no matter what you do to kind of help you out of your dark period, it could be therapy, it could be a retreat. There's modalities like Reiki, psychedelics. There's all of these different things that you can do that'll help you on your journey. But I promise you, you will never get to avoid the emotional work. And that is your awareness. That is your consciousness. That is the awakening. So until next time, noble ones, I love you guys, and just be true to yourself, stay noble, and make choices that are good for you, because it's a behavior. Lots of love.